Well, good morning. Welcome to Christ Table and another day of Bible study. If you'd like to know more about Christ Table, you can find out more about us, who we are, what we do by visiting the URL that is right up there, www.christstable.today. My name is Kevin Young, lead clergy at Christ Table. We are working in the margins of those who are disappointed, disconnected, disillusioned, done with church. And if that describes you, then you're in the right place. Now, if you'd like to know more about this study in particular, then that URL right there in front of me, go.christstable.today/fearnot, will give you some resources to help you along in this study. There is a guide that gives you all of the days of the study with all of the readings, as well as a study guide PDF for every day of the study that gives some questions, gives some insights, gives some other things and resources to help you along with that. It's absolutely free. Now, if you would like a printed copy of that, then you can also get a printed copy of that there, this book. If you take advantage of that, then that helps us here at Christ Table continue to bring these to you, but also don't feel bad about just downloading the free PDF as well. Now, we find ourselves today in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Now, yesterday we talked a lot about fear and how when angels visited Mary, whenever they visited Zechariah, whenever they come to Joseph, and almost, if not every time in the Bible, whenever we see an angel interacting with a human being, they always say, "Fear not." So we talked a little bit about fear and how fear is a part of the human experience, and it is also, I believe, an unavoidable part of the human experience. Now, today we're going to look at this passage from Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. And as we sometimes say around here, Proverbs is not intended to be foolproof doctrine. It's not intended to be a thus saith the Lord kind of item as you read through them. It's more fortune cookie wisdom, things that tend to hold true in life for most people most of the time. It's sage advice, good advice for those who are wise from those who are wise. So whenever we come to Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, we're going to have this statement made about trust. And oftentimes, fear, as we have said already in this study, comes whenever there is something that is unknown or whenever there is something that is outside of our full control, and that causes fear. So we have a choice to make in those moments, and trust is the, I say antidote to fear, but oftentimes I think that fear and trust can run on parallel tracks, that both things can be true at the same time. There can be a level of trust as well as still a level of fear as we move through situations that are unknown or outside of our control. So, Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Don't depend, or if you memorize it the way I did in the King James, don't lean not on your own understanding. Seek his will in all that you do, and he, meaning God, will show you which path to take. So trust in the Lord with all of your heart. That is not just your feelings or your emotions. The implication here in the Hebrew is all that is within you, with the core control of yourself. So that idea of control, you may not be able to control the circumstances around you, but you are able to control yourself. There may still be fear, but rather than this fear that comes from an inability to control other things, channel that to an ability to control and manage yourself. And in those moments, in order to do that, you're not going to be able to lean on the things that you think you know. You're going to have faith in those moments. If you lean on what you know and what you see and what you feel, then the fear is going to reign supreme within you. Seek his will, seek God's will in all you do, or The way the King James phrases this, and I kind of like this, in all your ways acknowledge him, or in all your ways seek to know him. So in order to not lean on what you understand, you're going to have to lean on an understanding of God and a trust in God, which means that you're going to have to seek to know God better in order to trust God more. Oftentimes, those of us who have been in religious circles for a really long time seek to know God better, to seek to know God more in order to control God or to control other people and their framing of God. But really, the reason why we seek to know God more is so that we will have the capacity and the ability to trust him more. And when you're able to do that, he will show you which path to take, or really the way that this is rendered is that he will iron out your path. He will take the lefts and the rights and the switchbacks and smooth them out to a straighter road. He'll take the ups and the downs, the roller coaster of chasms, and smooth those things out. Not where it will be perfect and easy going, but that it will be easier to avoid fear of the unknown and things that are outside of your control. Now, I think that there is this great question that Chris has put in today's Bible study. And so I want to pull that question out of today's study from the study guide and just kind of pose it here to all of us. What are some reasons why people today might have trouble trusting in God's timing? And I think that this is sometimes the difficulty that religious people get into, is that we kind of hear some of the things that I've just said and we over spiritualize it rather than over applying it to the reality of the difficulty of the situations in which we face and the things in which we feel. We kind of push aside our feelings. We push aside the difficulties. We try to push down the fears in order to say, simply trust God, simply know God better, and things will be okay. And then we try that, and oftentimes they're not okay. And so I think that part of our ability to begin to understand fearing things and our fear of things, and then how to fear not, or at least fear less, requires us to face our fears and the difficulty that we have in moments of truly trusting God and what that looks like. And so I want you to spend some really intentional time today digging up reasons why we might have trouble trusting God's timing. And you might start by digging up reasons why other people have difficulty trusting God's timing, and that may be a gateway drug, an entryway into understanding why you have difficulty trusting God's timing. Let this simmer. Let this season for a bit today, this question, because it is the entry point into facing our fears and beginning to understand how we are able to trust in the middle of the unknown and in the middle of situations where we have no control, how we somehow or other live out Proverbs 3 verses 5 and 6 in the real world, not just in the fake religious pie in the sky pretend that what we face isn't difficult. That doesn't help any of us, right? So Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 encourages us to trust in God completely. Easier said than done, right? But it seems as though it may be better, at least in this biblical view, it may be better for us to be striving or to be moving towards trusting God completely than it is to simply stand in our fear, to find a way somehow or other to move forward. And if we can't find a way to move forward, then maybe we can find a way to take a step forward in trust. And if we can't find a way to take a step forward in trust, maybe we can find a way to take a half step or a quarter step, or slowly shuffle our feet forward. Or it may well be that our feet are still firmly planted in fear, but we can lean forward just a bit in order to try to begin to find a way to trust. And so we say trust in God completely, and Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 frames it as trust in God completely, but it had to be difficult for Mary. It had to be difficult for Joseph. It had to be difficult for Zechariah and Elizabeth. It had to be difficult for all of these folks who feared, not just the fear of this angel warrior standing in front of them, but even people who were called to trust in God and had to, in some sense or other, overcome a standstill fear in order to do it. So, trust in God completely, okay, but what if we instead change that period at the end of this sentence? And you might have seen me do that. If not, you will now, rather than it being a period, maybe it's a question mark. Trust in God completely. What does that look like for you? What would it mean in the midst of your fear today, to be able to trust in God more completely or move towards that? That, I think, is the question that we're facing today, is not how do we solve the problem of fear, but how do we begin to dig ourselves out of it? And what can we do, no matter how small, no matter how little, can we do to move towards a scenario where we are able to say, I may not yet be able to fear not, but I might be able to fear a little less. Un poquito. The smallest amount. That's all the time that we have for today. Looking forward to being back with you tomorrow as we continue on in this study of Fear Not. But until that time,